Hello friends, sorry about the delay. Ran into some issues that had to be resolved, and I hope you're all doing well as I do some final adjustments here. Hopefully you can find me. Okay, there you are. I apologize everybody for being a bit late, and I'm going to do a little tweak here on the sound. Move this tripod. So good morning, and thank you for everybody who was waiting patiently for me to arrive. I appreciate that. And I was trying to get another type of broadcast system underway, and this has been a constant learning process for me. And hey, Zen Ginger. And how's the sound? How's the sound? How's the picture? Does it look okay? Let's see. Andy has his coffee. You know, some folks are in parts of the world where it's a lot later, and sound is good. Thank you, Candy. And sometimes I get comments like, "Well, it's a little late here, so we're having beer." So, at any rate, I've got my coffee, and I thank you for joining in. And it certainly has been some interesting weeks for all of us. I'm sure we have about looks like 41 people on the stream, and I thank you all for getting here. Go ahead and send out that link and share it with your friends. Let them know that we are live, that I was able to actually get onto the live stream. So let's do a few shout outs. What do you say? Last week we had a few super chats. I want to thank those who did super chats last week. It does help. And Kaler's Aquatics, thank you so much. And also Jerry Martin and Kaler's Aquatics, thank you so much for last week's super chat. So I had quite a setup here for this new way of broadcasting. I'll show you. I had the cam for the fish cam, a lot of lighting set up, and here's my bed, and and so I had the computer all set up and ready to go, 2 monitors, and more lighting, and at any rate, then you push the button and go, and nothing happens. And fortunately, I suspected that something might occur like that because for a variety of reasons. So I had my phone set up as a backup, and thank goodness for that. So I think from now on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up two ways of streaming, and then if the first option gives me some issues, I can go ahead and immediately switch over. So also shout outs to all of you who are here. I really appreciate you folks taking the time, and also to the wonderful moderators, GP, Kevin, and Denny, and of course the amazing Candy, who is always there. And you folks, that any super chats today, of course, I'm going to send you out if you want them. If you don't have them already, I'll send you out some stickers. I've got these stickers in. That's the Taiwan Reef that is also on the coffee cup. And then I've got the old Facebook banner stickers as well. So if you folks do any super chats, send me your address and I'll get those out to you. And I'll ship them anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter. It's a real light envelope, so that's good. And also thank you to those of you who have gone to the Teespring and ordered the coffee cups and sweatshirts and things like that. It's very appreciated. So what's been going on? I've had a few videos that I've put out. Some of you have watched them. You saw my funny little video on clown loaches, and just the way they kind of lay on their side. You know, I've had those clown loaches actually stack. It's hilarious. All three of them, los tres amigos, the clown loaches in the 100, they actually will get one on top of the other and lay on their side like a stack of pancakes. You know, they'll just lay there, and it's hilarious. But I have one in particular that he did it yesterday. Actually, when my son was here, he thought it was hilarious. Who has this one spot that I was able to capture on film. He just goes there and he kind of hangs there and kind of drifts with the movement of the tank water with the power heads and the outlets and whatever. And then little at a time, it's almost like if he had eyelids, you could imagine him blinking slowly. And hey, UPSer, thank you so much, buddy. So you could just see that, you see him start to drift, and then he slowly falls over. And he just lays there completely still. And a lot of folks mentioned under that video how many times they've gone to get the net because they thought the clown loach was dead, and of course he wasn't. So anyway, they're very funny, very, very funny fish. And I also put out a couple of other videos on different subjects, and yeah, they got a pretty good response. And I can pull up some of them here and talk with you about them. Let's see here. So today's topic, I want to talk a little bit about long-term success. And I tell you why I want to talk about that. You know, sometimes you see somebody and they start a project, and then you notice that the project just sort of disappears, and it's a little sad to see that. And you know, these kind of setbacks, these kind of failures that people go through in fish keeping are pretty devastating for most, and very often they can knock the person completely out of fish keeping, which is something you don't want to see, of course. So I just want to give you some tips on some things that I think would help for some long-term success. By long-term success, I mean being able to run a Ahmed Yasser. Thank you, Ahmed. Appreciate that, my friend. And yes, coffee. Thank you for that coffee, my friend. So like long haul, you know, being able to actually watch fish go all the way from juvie into adulthood, and then, you know, get old and live their life, and not have the kind of setbacks that can knock a person backwards. And that's really the theme of today's live stream. And I wrote a few points down that came to mind, and if I had to stress one in particular for long-term success, it would have to be education and knowledge. That to me is it can't be overemphasized. And hi, Adam C. Thank you for stopping by, my friend. And you'll notice, Adam, that I'm wearing a baseball. This was the official Phillies 2019 T-shirt for spring training. Of course, baseball is canceled. Opening day was supposed to be yesterday, and just one of the many areas where life is being impacted. My son, who works for the Phillies, is actually staying with us. He didn't want to go back home to Seattle, Washington, because it's a bit of a hotbed up there. We don't know what's going to happen. So he's staying with us here in Arcadia, California. So at any rate, education. Number one, education. And because how do a lot of us learn? I mean, I know how I learned, and how do a lot of us learn? How did you learn what you know about fish and fish keeping? Very often we learn through hard knocks. We learn through making a bad mistake, and then we go, oh boy, what was that? You reach out to friends, right? You send out a few emails, you go to a few groups, and you go, hey, look, this fish is bloated, this fish is swimming irregular, has some marks on his body, what's going on? And then we learn. So we learn through this process of making mistakes and problems, and then and then afterwards, it's sort of like the old thing about, closing the barn door after the horse has left, right? I mean, it's a hard way to learn, but yet it's the way a lot of us learn some of the more tougher lessons in fish keeping. So if you can get a lot of that on the front end, and so it's a little bit of an odd thing, because what gets people into fish keeping? Well, they go to a store and they see these fish and they fall in love with them. And so what do they want? They want an immediate aquarium. They want to have that fish or fish like that at home right away. And so they just sort of jump in. And that enthusiasm is great. It's a great part of the hobby. At the same time, the advice I could give is to pull it back a little bit, and it's hard to do when you're in the excitement of it, especially if you're a young kid getting started. You want to have it all set up and beautiful right now. And so for long-term success, I think, education, what are the needs of the fish? What are the needs of that particular kind of fish that you're interested in? Do they need hard water, soft water, brackish water? What kind of temperature will they thrive in, right? Who on the stream right now knew about those things, about the fish that they put into their first aquarium? Very few people. Very few people very few of us know before we go. We go, and then we crash, and then we go and find out, and then we know. And so the best advice I could give on that is, okay, learn about the needs of your fish. Temperature, water parameters, food. What kind of food will that fish? For example, in the tank behind me, I have protomellus, and I have what you would call predator haps or haps. You have fish that need a lot of high protein, and then I have some fish that need veggies. There's even a pleco in there that needs algae and needs greens. So I've got to really be able to mix that up in a way that can meet the nutritional needs of these fish. When I first started in African cichlids, and I had protomellus, I had Mabuna, I had Lake Victoria, I had other lakes in there. I had I don't know. I bought some fish food and I put it in there, and some fish seem to thrive, other fish seem to suffer. Hey Chris, thank you so much, Chris. Very appreciated. And hey, you folks that are super chatting, if you send me your address to ben.o.cichlid, and I'm gonna send you a set of stickers. It's the same thing that's on here, at one of those stickers. And the other one is the old banner I used to have before Sam made me a new one for the. So anyway, if you came late, yeah, definitely send me that. So at any rate, learn about before you go, education for long-term success, education. I still watch videos. I'm not as voraciously, not in the kind of volume I used to watch them in when I first got going, but I'll still watch Corey. I'll stop by Tank Top, and watch John. Of course, I'll watch IFG all the time just because he's fun. But I'll watch folks out there, and I'll always pick something up. I'll get a tip, and I also learn a lot from reading your comments. Your comments are fascinating to me, and very often it'll give me an idea that I'll look into. And so, education, number one for long-term success, and learn about nutrition. Also learn about what your test results mean. And I'm not as obsessed as I used to be about testing my water. Maybe I should have been, based on a previous set of videos I released on nitrate reduction, but I'm not as obsessed as I used to be. But I let it go, I let it slip too long, and so do test, even if it's just using strips to get a feel for what's going on. I know a lot of folks, they rag on strips, and I agree that they're not really super accurate, but still, it's something. So get a feel for that and know what those things mean. What does it mean when you notice a slight uptick in ammonia or nitrite, or your water hardness, your GH, your KH has changed a little bit. What does that mean? What does it mean when you notice a little bit of ammonia has all of a sudden shown up? So, wow, do you hear that splash behind me? That was amazing. So, so at any rate, education, number one piece of advice I could give you for long-term success is just be a total nut about information. Gather as much information as you can. Join Facebook groups, ben.o.cichlid. Let me get a plug in, and go to Facebook groups, get into conversations with people. Also realize that there's nonsense out there. There are folks that give advice that's off or incorrect. But also, hey, Kaylor, I did a shout out to you in the beginning. Just realize that you've got to take everything with a grain of salt, a pretty big grain of salt. Just keep that in mind as well. My other advice for long-term success is variety. Variety. There's a great word. I think it's trite. Trite. The word trite. I think that means like things just become so routine, so just day in, day out. And it's just, I feed my fish, I do my water change, I look at them, they're cute, okay. It just becomes, you start to get a little bit into a boredom or a routine, and you don't have that excitement, that tingle you used to have, like when you were a kid and got your fish, and or you're waiting for that arrival of that box with that wonderful exotic fish. You should experience that sort of joy and excitement on a pretty regular basis and not let it become routine. And if it's become routine and boring, change things up. Change things up a little bit. Get some variety. Start in on another species. Change up things in the tank. I just did some decor changes where I pulled things out in one of my recent videos, making more room without, giving the fish a bigger tank without moving them or something like that. I forget. But so, do things that'll actually add some put the excitement back in. And now, that's not to say that if you have a working setup that you're really enjoying, hey, carry on. I mean, that's awesome. However, if you find yourself becoming bored and it's starting to lose some of that tingle it used to give you, then consider adding some variety, maybe some different species, maybe a rescape, maybe sell off a few fish and bring in some new types that you haven't had before, things of that nature. Keep the excitement there, keep the joy, keep that edge there. The other thing that I would, and you know this already, for long-term success, the other thing I would suggest is this, and you already know this, you have to do the work. And this is one of those where we all have moments where we're just exhausted and I'm just going to skip this weekend because I've got too much going on, or I was on vacation for 2 weeks and someone else was feeding them and they overfed them and there was no water changes. There's moments there's moments, but do the work. It can't be emphasized enough with fish keepers. Service those the filters. Not overdo it, not obsess and make it all work and no play and no enjoyment, but definitely stay on a schedule that works, and don't let yourself slip. Don't let it slide, because if it does, you're going to set yourself up for a crash. Something's going to go off. You're going to have a little bit of ammonia, or something's going to happen, and because you didn't do that water change, you're going to have some type, maybe a pH drop or something, and then you'll have that loss. And this is everything I'm talking to you about is for two reasons: one, to keep joy and excitement in the hobby, and two, to avoid or stop the losses that people can accumulate while keeping fish that eventually take them out of the hobby. And so we don't want those losses. So you've got to do the work. You got to do the work. And so that's another key tip for long-term success. Another one I'm gonna tell you is that's really been good for me. And you tell me what you think about this. But for long-term success, help other people. And I'll tell you why that's worked for me. And it's not entirely altruistic. It's not entirely, I'm not trying to be the Mother Teresa of fish keepers. But what I'm saying is this: when you help other people, you learn, actually. I've had people ask me a question and I didn't really know about it, but I was very interested in the question. And so I went and did research. And then I would call back, I'd chat with them again and I'd go, hey, look, I looked into that and this is what I came up with. And I've had so many conversations like that over the last few years that I've gained a tremendous amount of education about fish keeping from just trying to help someone else. Hey, I'm a new fish keeper. I got this kind of fish. Do you think it's okay in this tank? I'll go and do a little bit of research. Now, I could be a jerk and just go, hey, dude, why don't you Google it yourself? What am I? But it's. I mean, sometimes you can tell if a person's being lazy, but sometimes you can tell if they honestly want some help and are trying to seek out some help. And I'll tell them up front. I'll go, look, I'm not an expert in that area, but I'm gonna look into it because your question fascinates me, and I'll learn something. Someone asked me some questions about silver dollars the other day. Very interesting. Went and looked into them, found out all this interesting stuff about silver dollars. So help others. I think that's a great way to have long-term success because you will learn as you help others. I think that's important. The other thing is, and I can't stress this enough because I see people getting into 20, 30, 40 tanks, 50 tanks, and I admire it. But on the other hand, if they have a family, there's got to be some type of there's got to be some sacrifices that could be leading to bigger issues down the road. And so my last tip to you for long-term success is balance. Don't go overboard. Keep things in perspective so that you can do all your maintenance, get all the work done you need to do, stay on top of things, and at the same time be able to continue to participate in the areas that you should be participating in, like whether it's family or work or working, cleaning up the garden or walking the dogs or bathing the dogs or whatever it is that you've got. Set things up for balance, because otherwise what's going to happen is there's going to be a problem, and that problem is going to, it's going to take the joy out of it because, well, here I am working on my tanks and my wife wanted to go somewhere today and I told her I couldn't because, and so now we have this sort of issue going on, and so that over time will aggravate the situation and get you to a point where you go, you know what, I'm going to back off from fish keeping for a while, or I'm going to back off from being married for a while. So you get these different. It's a no-win situation. So keep the balance in place. Okay. So what do you suggest? What do you suggest for long-term success? What are your tips? What would you tell me if I was a brand new fish keeper and I came to you and I said, look, I don't want to be one of those folks that has this massive crash and all this fish die. And what tip would you give me for long-term success? What would you tell me? So I'd like to hear that. Just go ahead and comment it. I'd love to see it. Ben, seeing your shirt, I miss baseball. Ruben Rivera Jr., you have no idea how much I miss baseball. And if you just came on the stream, my son, who works for the Philadelphia Phillies, is staying at our house. This was the official 2019 Phillies squad shirt they were using in the clubhouse. And hey, what can we say? It's a different world, at least. But this will pass. This will pass, and things will get much, much better, folks. And I think we're going to come out of this actually better than before. Some of us are making connections with family members that we had just sort of taken for granted. Some of us are handling projects that have been needing to be handled for a long time, but we've been too busy working. Well, we're home and we're doing it now. So I think we're going to come out of this better and than we were before, because it's sort of a big reset. And anyway, I know the 50,000 tons of smog that are not going into the LA area on a daily basis because less people are driving. I know that's got to be a good thing, you know. So, at any rate, so let me address some of your comments, some of your questions, and you folks can tell me what you suggest for long-term success, and then I'll scroll back through it and take a look at it. We have 133 people on the stream. I want to thank all of you for being here. You're very, very appreciated. I hope you're drinking out of one of these cups. If you're not, Candy can help you locate one. A shameless plug. Maybe for some of you in other parts of the world where it's already late, I should come up with a channel beer mug, because I know some of you are having beer right now. So the Cichlids and Brew, Cichlids and Suds. There you go, Cichlids and Suds. All right. So some of the questions from last week, and Kaylor, let's see here, and Kaylor's Aquatics and Jerry Martin, I gave you a shout out for your super chats last week. Thank you so much for that. Super chats, for those of you that don't know, you can throw a little money at the channel, and at any rate. So a couple questions that jumped out last week. Tech for Tex. I don't know if Tech for Tex is here, but he said you had 180,000 views this month. Thank you for pointing that out, Tech for Tex. You do get analytics from YouTube, and they tell you how many people have watched your video over the last 28 days. And it was running last week at about 180,000 views over the course of a month. Now, keep in mind, there was a time when if I had 100 views, I was very, very excited. So 180,000 views is completely, it's like, I can't believe it. Neil Graysmark. Oh yeah, okay, Neil's the one that mentioned to me, I have beer because I'm in the UK, so it's beer time in the UK. Okay, those of you on the UK, thank you so much for tuning in. Also, I have a lot of folks from Australia that tune in. Hey, Kaylor, I see that. Thank you, my friend. Your support is really, really appreciated. Franklin Hung, how many gallons is that tank behind you? Franklin, this is 150 gallon, and I think I have about another maybe 40 gallons in the sump system underneath. So there's about 170 to 180 to 200 gallons of water actually in the system, but this tank is 150 gallon, and it's a low and deep. I didn't want to have to reach all the way, to my shoulder to do work on the tank, so I got a tank that's a little bit lower. It's a little bit, it's not as high, but it's deep. It's like 2 feet from front to back, and so it gives the fish a lot of turnaround room, especially the big boys like the trout and that Venusis in there. I don't know why everybody's hanging around on that side for some reason. I don't know. Also, Franklin asked, anyone have any good light recommendations for a 36-inch planted tank? I've had good success with Beams Work, and Beams Work do sell. They have a full spectrum light. It's pretty inexpensive, comparatively speaking, and you also have lights like Phoenix Barracuda. I got that tip from Corey, and that's a great light. And I have one on the sump behind me, and because we're broadcasting this way, I can just show you. Let me just show you here. Let's see if I can get this right. This is called a Phoenix Barracuda, and it has an arm on it. See that? has an arm on it, so you can move it around and put it wherever you want. So that light actually is a full spectrum light. The light I have up here is this is a Beamswork. This is a 72-inch Beamswork. Look at the size of that thing. It's massive, and I've got some plexi acrylic strips to help with evaporation. That's what you're seeing on the top here, and that's a 72-inch Beamswork full spectrum. You guys want to look at the fish? Fish cam. All right. One of the advantages of using a phone is you can get a mobile. So I like the Beamswork. They're a heavy-duty light, and one of the things I like about them is that they're hardwired. And by that, what I mean is the wiring it's not a plug-in on the light. Some of these have plug-ins that it's like a little jack that you plug into the strip. I've had those become corroded because of the amount of humidity that can occur under a canopy, and then they don't work anymore. You can put some grease, some electrical grease that'll help prevent them from being corroded if you have a light like that. I suggest you do use some of that. They have a type of special grease you can use, like an electrical grease that you can put on there to prevent the corrosion, but I've had them become corroded and become unusable. So I like the Beamswork because they're hardwired into that top section. And as you can see, of course, the Phoenix lights are also it's a hardwired unit that attaches. Okay. Now, Jerry Martin, I've been using Cichlids salt with every water change, as well as Malawi buffer. I understand that my fish are domestic. I guess that means locally bred, or many generations of being raised in tanks. My question is, am I wasting my money? You know, the Seachem product is that I use, the Malawi product, the lake salt. They call it a type of lake salt, but it's not salt. It's actually more trace minerals, and it's not salt. And I don't use the dose, because if you use the recommended dose, you'll go through tubs and tubs of it, and it is expensive. I add, like to this tank here, when I do a water change, I'll add maybe 1.5 heaping teaspoons, like 1 heaping teaspoon and a half teaspoon, dissolve it in hot water and then cool the water down and then add it. I think I'd have to add probably 4 times that much if I followed the recommendations. I just want some trace minerals in the water. The minerals these fish get is through the, they get it from the water, right? It comes in through the gills and through the skin, through the scales, and that's how they get their minerals. So your tap water probably doesn't have all the mineral requirements that your fish need. Yes, your food is making up for that. Your food does have some of those minerals, but in the wild, they do get a lot of their mineralization comes in through the water, and so I like to put a little bit of that in the water for them, and I do that with. So, if your fish are looking good and they're healthy, good color, they're active, their eyes are clear and bright, and they look good, then keep doing what you're doing. I wouldn't change, okay? And let's see here. Shala Panella, tell us about your cycling. How far are you going? What kind of terrain, street, sidewalk, path? Have you ever bought fish and biked them home? Shala, I wouldn't buy fish on my bicycle, because if I got into an accident or something, I would probably roll myself around the fish and let the car hit me. So no, I haven't. I don't go to the fish store on my bike. I like to ride hills. I like to ride steep hills. and because they give you a lot of cardio in a short amount of time. Just like I used to like racquetball, because you get a lot of, instead of tennis, I used to play tennis and racquetball, you get a very condensed, intense exercise. So I ride up steep hills, and my longest ride has been just under 50 miles. And but that was an unusual. Most of my rides are 5 miles to 10 miles, somewhere in there. And I love riding up steep stuff. Do you know why I like riding up steep stuff? Because when you turn around, you come down, you can go real fast. All right. Franklin Hung said, I wish some more people of my age, 16, were interested in aquariums, but they are all now phone addicted. Well, yeah, I think you're right. We're all a bit phone addicted. The phone has become a big part of our part of our life here, and but it's going to be up to us. It's going to be up to us actually inviting people into our homes, having them look at the tanks, get excited, and then offering to them an opportunity to actually start a tank and maybe offer them some help. That's how it gets. That's what happens. Someone goes in and sees a tank, and their eyes kind of go, "Whoa, man, that's amazing." You go, "Hey, you want to start a tank? I'll give you some tips. I'll help you out." And that's to a large degree my purpose. My purpose is to help young fish keepers and to get people into the hobby, not let the hobby die, because I think the hobby has a tremendous therapeutic value. It helps people with stress. It also gets people to think in terms of science and math to some degree. I just think it's a great hobby in a lot of different ways, and it's very, very rewarding. And so I love to see young people get into it, but it's going to be up to us to be able to spread the word and get other people excited, and that gets back to that point of helping others. Hey, if you'd ever like to start a tank, let me know. I'll give you a hand. I've got some filter media I can give to you that you can actually help to start up a new tank. Things of that nature, and kind of get it going that way. And but you're right, Franklin. I mean, how many memes have we seen where 1970 or 1960, there's the kid climbing in the tree and rolling down the hill, or riding a piece of cardboard down a hill, and fast forward 2020, the kid's sitting there. I mean, what are you gonna do? So Sharpies, models, and aquatics. Getting sand. I guess we were talking about sand and substrates, and cleaning the tank, and not letting any sand get onto the scrubber, because it would scratch the tank. And Sharpies, models, and aquatics said that getting sand between anything is never good. And we all agree with you. Certainly Aquaballs agrees that getting sand is never a good thing. Brian, 67, what is your recommendation for fish feeding frequency? Brian, 67, I'm not sure if you're on here today, Brian, but I was feeding twice a day. And recently I have gone to once a day. This is all part of that nitrate correction that occurred after that series of videos on nitrates, and the ones on handling the nitrates and tap to tank, and all those different videos I did. I actually scaled back the feeding. The fish don't seem any worse for wear. They're doing okay with a once a day feeding. Brian, thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate it. And the 8-footer fund is growing. Thank you. And so at any rate, I'm feeding them once a day, and they do get a treat once a week, something like a frozen krill, a high protein treat like a frozen krill. And now there is one exception. I have the Star Sapphire. you're going to see a video in a few days called Fish Rehab. Fish Rehab. Watch for that video. And what that is the it's the Vincent vlog. The Vincent vlog. I have the Star Sapphire, who's in the 30-gallon. The 30-gallon that used to be the Malawi Hawk Hotel. For those of you who follow my channel, you know what I'm talking about. So, so in there, what I have is Vincent, and he's getting fed twice a day because I'm trying to fatten him up. He was a bit caved in. Hey, GP, thank you so much, GP, very appreciated. So, so Vincent is getting fed twice a day, trying to get his belly to fill in. He went through Metroplex and Focus, various foods, finally started eating, and you'll see a video on him called Fish Rehab. And Jewel Jordan, what's the best way to keep my pH up? Well, I mean, for me, it's been crushed coral substrates. You know, that's what using an aragonite substrate, that helps. It's not something that I have too much attention on, because the water that comes out of our faucets here in Southern California, some people call it liquid rock. It's very hard. It's a high pH, sitting at around 7.9, 7.9, 7.8. And so I keep the aragonite and the crushed coral more for stability than anything else, more for mineralization. So at any rate, that would be the advice on that point. And I hope that helps. I've also heard that using limestone as a decor really helps to add calcium and magnesium and things of that nature to the water. And that, of course, makes the water a bit harder, keeps those minerals in the water column, and that can help as well. So let's take a look here at some of the comments that I may have missed. I'm going to go back a little bit, and Matman B, do you use dimmers on those to control the algae? No, I don't use dimmers, Matman, but I do use a timer. My lights are on for about, well, they're on from 7 a.m. to about 10, and then they go off, and they come back on from about 6 to 10 or 7 to 10, somewhere in there. So I get about 6-7 hours of light a day, and that's helped with the algae. I have had a problem recently because they trimmed the trees on the property, and where before it was very shady, now I'm getting a lot of direct light coming in, and that's causing algae to go onto these plants that you see here, and these plants here. They're starting to get a little bit of that some of that black algae. And the thing I love about those plants, the detail of the plants, they're from Elite Cichlids. I love the detail of the plants, but that also makes them a little hard to clean. And so, you know, I end up pulling them out and really scrubbing them and really working at them. So at any rate, no dimmers, but I do use a timer. Let's see here. I'm scrolling back through some of your questions. If I don't catch yours, I'm sorry. Doesn't mean you're not important. Veronica White, okay, does anyone know what type of cichlid is best to start with, African or discus? I wouldn't recommend, Veronica, I wouldn't recommend discus as a first time, unless you have a lot of fish keeping experience. Then discus would be okay. They do require like perfection. They require perfect circumstances to thrive. But if you get it right, they're gorgeous. They are the king of freshwater fish, in my opinion. But otherwise, I just released a video on some cichlids for beginners that I'd suggest, and I had, like, you know, ruby reds in there, bicolor 500s, yellow sunshine bangas, you know, things like that. They get along okay. They're not too crazy. I would not get an eye biter. I wouldn't get a Venusis, even though they're commonly available at places like PetSmart and Petco. I wouldn't suggest a Venusis for a first-time fish keeper because they get big fast and become very, very aggressive, can be very aggressive. So at any rate, yeah, I have a couple videos on good fish for beginners. And other factors, of course, size of tank, filtration, your maintenance schedule, all those things come into play. And let's see. Frankie Finger, Love Cam. Gustavo Diaz, what would be the smallest tank size I would get just for a few smaller cichlids? Thanks from Austin, Texas. Austin's a great town, Gustavo. Love Austin. And I've been there several times. It depends. I mean, you can get some rams, some little rams, blue rams and golden rams, gorgeous fish, and would probably be okay for a while in a 30-gallon, something that size. I wouldn't go smaller than, say, 30 or 40, somewhere in there. And you could even get some smaller, maybe shellies. Shellies are small fish, but I don't know. You have to put shells in there, and you have to study up on them a little bit. Certainly, if I was starting off with, let's say, a 30, 40-gallon tank, again, I could put, like a bicolor 500 will only get to about 5 inches. Ruby reds, neon, blue neons, things of this nature, like I talked about in the last video, they grow slow. They're slow growers. And but what I tell everybody, save some money because you are going to want to upgrade at some point. You're either going to get to a point where you're going to sell the fish off and you'll get good money for them if they're fully colored up and adults, and then you'll start over again with a new batch of juvies, or you'll have to go to a larger tank. I mean, it's kind of that simple. So some people thought that in that last video that I was saying that you should get 30-gallon cichlid tanks or something like that, and that wasn't the intention of that video. The intention of the video was the person that wants to get into cichlids and has limited space can start with a smaller tank. But as I say in the video, start saving because you'll probably need to get to a bigger tank later, or you'll probably have to trade them out or do something like that. So some people were accusing me of being irresponsible because I was telling people to have a 30-gallon cichlid tank. That was not my advice necessarily. So let's see here. I see there's several conversations going on that have nothing to do with the video. That's okay. I don't mind, as long as they're friendly and helpful. Okay. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to go right to the end. If you folks have any questions you want to ask me right now, go ahead and type them in. And I had to put air stones in my cichlid tank in order for them to act normal. Interesting. If your fish are a little bit oxygen starved, they are going to act unusual. And for a while I had a tank where the fish were working their mouths, and I thought that was just normal. Well, isn't that what fish do? They're constantly doing this. No, that isn't what fish do. My fish were actually working a little harder than they should have for oxygen. And the truth is that if your fish are, and here, let's just take a look at these fish. Take a look at these fish right here. Look at their mouths. Their mouths are not working at all. Not one bit. There's no movement. Their mouths are shut. Unless they're in a chase or there's food involved and there's something going on, their mouths are closed. And so if your fish are working their mouths like this, chances are they're struggling a little bit for oxygen. So an air stone would make a big difference because you'd start more exchange going on at the surface. If your fish are doing that, working their mouths, try that. Add an air stone or put a power head, right, a wave maker, in the tank near the top where it's breaking up the surface And you'll notice almost an immediate change. You'll notice more color because they're less stressed. They'll color up more. They'll calm down a little bit. And maybe even aggression will go down. I imagine if they're in a situation of stress like that, they're going to be more susceptible to disease. And maybe they're going to get into a mode where they feel they got to kill off someone else, because maybe that way it'll balance things out or whatever. Who knows what goes on in their little fishy brains. But yeah, I would say that definitely air stones can make a big difference. I noticed a big difference back when I had just the 60, and I had that going on, and someone in a video pointed out to me, they said, hey, your fish seem to be working their mouths. And immediately I was like, oh no, that's just what fish do. What are you talking about? Well, come to find out, when I had a problem later that resulted in some serious oxygen issues that I talked about in a video, yeah, my fish were right on the borderline. So at any rate, yeah. Let's see here. A fishy couple. Hi, Ben. I've been trying to get your opinion on swim bladder issues for a while. Have you had any experience with treating it, or do you have any knowledge about it? Fishy couple, I really can't comment on swim bladder issues. I have had fish in the many years I've been keeping fish that have suddenly lost their ability to swim. One was because he was hit very hard on the side by another fish when he was against the wall, and the impact, I think, probably ruptured the swim bladder. He immediately tipped and shortly after that died. So I really don't know much about that. If you folks that are on the stream right now know anything about swim bladder issues, go ahead and comment on it. And someone just Kawonyu Aquatics, should we all use our stimulus money to buy fish? Sounds right to me. Thank you for the super chat. Yeah, I think that stimulus money is going to help. It does have some certain guidelines or requirements attached to it. For those of you not in the United States, a bill was just signed to help us. A lot of us are furloughed. A lot of folks simply don't have a job right now, and it's creating a tremendous stress on the economy. So, Soy Sky, hi Ben, do you plan on having membership on your channel? I've thought about that, and I think I will. I think it'll just be something like $1, maybe $5, maybe different levels. I don't know. I've just, here's what bothers me about it. The only thing that bothers me about it is that some of you will be not allowed to view certain content because you're not a member. And I've just got to get my wits around that, that's all. Jason Douglas, thank you so much. You provide the best direct information. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate that. Much appreciated. There are a lot of great folks out there on YouTube. I'm just, and I appreciate you thinking that about me. So yeah, I think at some point I will, and it'll probably be just a few bucks, and it'll be, I don't know, maybe a behind the scenes, maybe a video of me setting up for a live stream, and or maybe a video of me doing stuff that you wouldn't normally see in a video. I don't know. YouTube wants me to send them a video explaining why I should have membership. So I've got to do that video and then go from there. So Ronica White, what would be a good type of filter for larger tanks? 50 plus. I only have experience with hang-on back filters. Well, hang-on backs are great. I think hang-on backs are great. You can put 2 hang-on backs on a bigger tank. And, canisters are great. I love canisters. If you really want to get into it, watch my videos on sumps. Sumps are amazing. You don't have to have a drilled tank. You can use what's called an overflow box, and it can operate like a drilled tank and move water into a sump where it goes through filtration and over beneficial bacteria, then back to the tank with a pump. And it adds water volume, so it dilutes. You know, here, I'll show you what I'm talking about. This is a sump system here. Look at this media. Look at all this media right here. That I would have to have 10 FX6s to have that much media. Then I got this giant upright matin sponge from Swiss Tropicals. There's some shrimp living in here, some bamboo shrimp. I've got two of these algae scrubbers. I'm going to talk about them in an upcoming video called Fish Love Algae. I've got three chambers, and you can see here I've got heaters down here, 2 of these cobalt heaters. I've got a reel pump. It's moving 2,000 gallons an hour, and minus the head pressure. And then I've got an overflow box in case things get low a little bit. And you can put your heaters down here, so they're not in the tank. And that's the king of filtration right there, is a sump. Now, that being said, you can also go with I mean, here's a Sun 704. I use this filter here, this Sun. That's used just for sponges. That's just for water clarification and just for water clarity. By the way, if you don't have these lights, get some of those lights. It's like a game changer. Anyway, they just attach with a piece of tape. They just attach and they last forever. Anyway, that's a 704B under there. It's just a workhorse, runs forever, and it's just for water clarification. It's all sponges. I clean it like 3 times a year, and because the sump does all the heavy lifting. I also have a power head over here, a power head that's pushing the water this way, because the intake for the 704B and the overflow box are on this side. So, at any rate, I got carried away. You asked me about filtration, I just go nuts. So, sumps, think about sumps, but hang-on back filters are great, easy to work on, right? Reach in, easy to work on, very easy. And I love hang-on back filters. Canisters, I think, are great. I mean, I like them all. So, by the way, in that sump behind me, I also have sponges that are in there that are just floating in the 3rd chamber that are getting a bacteria colony growing on them. So I can pull them out and start a quarantine tank immediately. And so, again, the flexibility of a sump is unbelievable. Let's see here. Any other questions you folks have that I can answer? We're running over a little bit, and but you folks are hanging in there with me. Yeah, I'm sorry about that fishy couple with your blood parrot. I don't know what else to tell you because I'm not an expert in that area with that swim bladder issue. Mark Gaffus, what's everyone's take on bacteria balls? Are those like the bacteria balls that you get like when you order BioHome and they send you those little black balls that dissolve over time? That's a I don't know. I mean, I had success with them. I've tried them a couple times when I've gotten BioHome. They've come with the BioHome, and I put them in there, and but how do you measure the success? I mean, the fish didn't die. I mean, did they not die because of the bacteria balls? I mean, I don't know. But let's see here. Someone is saying Aqua Clear or Tidal for, yeah, those are good. I have an old Marine Land on my 60, one of those dual bio wheel things that I got for free thrown in when I bought a used tank one time. Thing is like a workhorse. It sat for a year in a garage, pulled it out, cleaned it up, plugged it in, just started running. Quiet, moves a lot of water. I noticed an immediate clarification. I mean, the tank looked great. Anyway, one of the reasons I love hang-on backs also is because the cascading water, it breaks up the surface tension, and that gives you more oxygen. Going back to that point on oxygen earlier. So they're great for oxygen in the tank, breaking up that surface tension. You'll notice none of my tanks have air stones. It's all being broken up through power heads. And of course in the sump, I have both of those algae scrubbers that are releasing bubbles, and a lot of breakup of the water as it trickles down the main tower. So, all right, Duke City aquariums, don't use salt for swim bladder. Okay, yeah, sometimes salt is not recommended for sure. Okay, can someone help out Po Siwi? She wants to know if her 3 tinfoils. She ended up with 3 tinfoils. Can they live with cichlids? Anybody there? Anybody on the stream know if 3 tinfoils can live with cichlids? I've never looked into that. All right. Now, some of you on the stream right now, if you're not subscribed, be sure to hit that sub button, and also be sure to hit that bell so that you get notifications. And I'm running over a little bit. I think I need to end off so that you folks can go do some stuff on your weekend. I want to thank all of you for sitting in. I want to thank those of you who super chatted. Very appreciated that you folks do that. And also thank you everybody. Hey Cichlid Shack, thank you buddy. Thank you for showing up. I want to thank you for the 2 or 3 false starts I had today trying to get this other system going, hanging in there and showing up anyway. Thank you to my moderators, Candy, Denny, Kevin, GP. Thank you to my super chatters. And again, if you super chatted today, send me your address, ben.o.cichlid@gmail.com, and I'm going to send you some of these stickers. And if you have them already, and you want another set, give them away over at the local fish store. And that's it for me. Tomorrow I'm going to have a video on I think tomorrow is the Vincent video on fish rehab, and then I have another video coming out on algae, on how much the fish love to eat algae and how I cultivate algae from my algae scrubbers, and then they have it as a treat. I think you'll find it kind of interesting. Okay, thank you everybody. Stay safe, healthy, and that's it for me. Bye-bye.